Hi everyone, it's Stephanie Weaver here in the blue and yellow kitchen with Microwave Boy on the camera and Daisy Mae the Golden Retriever wandering around. Today I'm going to be making chicken pot pie with leftovers. So this is leftover diced chicken breast from the Garten roast chicken I made. This was in the freezer, it's been defrosted. And then I set aside some of the roasted vegetables from that same dish, diced them up and then froze them so that because I knew I was going to want to make pot pie at some point. I had made, I know this is not an appetizing color, but I had made cream of mushroom soup, homemade cream of mushroom soup. I've got a few frozen peas left, and then I made some gluten-free pastry. So this is from the recipe that's going to be in my cookbook, so I'm not able to share it yet. But if you need a great recipe that can be made gluten-free, Claire Tansey in Uncomplicated has, it's called Forgiving Food Processor Pastry. And you can swap out gluten-free 1-to-1 flour because it's got the cream cheese in it. Like our recipes are similar, a slightly different ratio, but that will work. So if you want to make this, but you can also use your favorite pastry crust recipe for this. You could use puff pastry, really whatever you have. I also just wanted to talk briefly about, okay, so if you only have one pie pan, use that. If you have several, like I have ended up collecting over the years, which one would I recommend? Well, I recommend the one that's the sort of the deepest and the tallest, and ideally not as wide. So these are wider, and this one is going to just hold that, that mixture of meat and vegetables and gravy better than a shallow one is. So if you have a choice, that's what I recommend. If you only have one, use that, because that's fine. I do recommend spraying or oiling the pan just with a little bit of, I use olive oil spray. This might be done. So yep, it's done. So I'm just going to take a little corner of my stuff here to just wipe that around. It just helps keep everything from sticking. That's
wax paper.
It's wax paper, yeah. And I'm using it to just run this around just because my spray, I was wondering if it was done. It's done, and that's fine. Okay, so a couple of tips. You want everything ideally to be defrosted. The only thing that's not defrosted are the peas, and not a whole lot of peas, so it's probably not going to be a big deal, but you definitely want to break them up. And it might have been better if I'd rinsed and drained them, but there's not a whole lot. There's a little bit of ice crystals in there. You don't want the ice crystals to go in, so pull that out. Yeah, it would have been better if I had just lightly rinsed these just to get the moisture off of them, but not a big deal. My chicken's ready to go. Oops. Daisy's going to be...
Daisy, clean up on aisle 1.
Yeah, Daisy, clean up on aisle 1, Daisy. And then the other little tip I wanted to show you is that if you have frozen vegetables and then defrosted them, they're going to have quite a bit of moisture in them, which is not ideal. You don't want the filling to end up really runny. So what I'm going to do is just drop them on one of my old kitchen towels, these are the ones I call my disreputable kitchen towels. They're perfectly clean, but they just look terrible. But they're great for, the reason they look terrible is once they get stains on them, then I use them for things like this, where I'm squeezing water out of vegetables, or I'm, squeezing water out of a potato for a potato pancake, or cleaning mushrooms. They just get kind of funky looking, but they're really great, and that way I'm not using up paper towels. So, because these just go back into the laundry and they get reused. All right, so I know you can't see what I'm doing. Let me turn it around. Just didn't want to throw it all over the counter. Then I just kind of roll it off, and then all that moisture doesn't end up in our filling. Okay, and then our last thing is I have, as I said, cream of mushroom soup, not a pretty color. I also have a little bit of cream gravy left that had been frozen. Those were from the Ikea meatballs I made in that same bulk cooking week. So I really wanted to show you today
So this is really your best of.
Yeah, it's kind of the best of, but I also just want to show you that you can end up making a lot of different tasting foods from some base recipes. And this is what I do on a pretty regular basis, is I think about, plan ahead slightly and say at some point I'm going to want to make a pot pie, because I love pot pies. I grew up eating those. Did you grow up eating those frozen ones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
banquet.
The banquet ones, yeah.
They were like 25 cents each.
Yeah, they were very cheap. And that was like a special kind of TV dinner night. Usually those were Sunday night dinners, because we would have Sunday...
you stab it with a fork a couple times.
That's right. We'd have Sunday dinner, hot Sunday dinner that my mom would make, a roast or something, after church, so like 1 o'clock. And then Sunday night was the one night we got to eat sort of what we wanted as kids. And so it was, you know, things in the toaster oven, things, well, we barely had a microwave. It was relatively late in my childhood. It was like mid-teens when we first got our first humongous microwave. And then we just like, it was very powerful. We had no idea how to use it. And so the family joke was that the first thing my mom cooked in it was turkey jerky, because she like blasted some kind of turkey breast or something, and it was just inedible, which, you know, irritated her to no end because she was extremely frugal. Sorry, I just need to grab a paper towel because I'm just going to clean up. So what I did was I think that was pretty self-explanatory, but I just mixed all that stuff together. Don't need any extra seasoning because all these things were seasoned when they were first made. And now I'm ready for my crust. So my crust, as I mentioned, is a cream cheese, butter, and gluten-free flour crust.
Can I ask you why you don't put crust on the bottom?
So that is not, so pot pie, it just has a crust on the top. Mm-hmm. Shepherd's pie, you use mashed potatoes for the crust. And then
so you don't need
like a chicken pie, I guess if you were making like a savory chicken pie, you would do a double crust. But the thing is that whipping together this pastry is like 5 minutes, and then you're just rolling it out and putting it on top, so it's not as much work. So I did make this a little while ago and I had refrigerated it, so it's a little bit colder than it should be. If you make this cream cheese and butter crust, if the cream cheese and the butter are refrigerated and you do, it's like not even a minute, it's just like 30 seconds in the food processor until it rolls into a ball. It's the perfect temperature to roll out and bake at that point. Or you can refrigerate it and then you have to wait for it to warm up just enough to roll out. So I'm fighting with it a little bit more. I'm just going to move that so I don't fling that onto the floor, because that's a bummer when that happens. So this is my mom's method. So it's 2 pieces of waxed paper, and you kind of roll from the center towards the outside. Why do I do this instead? Well, first of all, it's how my mom taught me, but you don't have to add a lot of flour to the board, and as long as you kind of keep flipping it. Now, the thing with this is you have to kind of, if you overdo it, it starts to stick to the paper. So it's kind of this delicate, slightly delicate balance, but I find this pretty easy in terms of managing the crust. And I do love a homemade crust. Like, I'm just very picky about my crust. My mom was an incredible baker, and her pies were sort of legendary. And, you know, I thought she had this like secret crust recipe, and it turned out it was just from Betty Crocker, which was a lot of things. You know, we thought were my mom's recipes. It turned out they were just from Betty Crocker, which is probably a lot of moms. This is pretty close. So then I want to just hold it up and kind of see where we're at size-wise. That looks good. Just want it to be bigger in diameter. And then if you haven't overdone it, you can just peel this back. Yay. And then you can flip this on top. Yay. Now I could have fixed, I don't know if you can see that. There's like a crack here that I probably should have fixed, but it's all good. I'm gonna fix it just by hand. You don't want it to roll it too thin or it starts to stick to the paper, so that's the only tricky part of this step. It's just, if you kind of peel it across like that, it works really well. And then I'm just going to mend this by hand. Voila, fini. Okay. And then I'm just going to roll this up. So I'm doing a really basic sort of rolled crust. You just want to make sure it's sticking to the pie plate. If you want, sometimes if you roll it a little thinner, you might have enough that you can make like a little extra little something, you know, if you have like a couple strawberries. I'm kind of weird that way, so like if I see, oh, I've got just enough crust to roll out to make like a little strawberry hand pie, I might do that and just bake it on the same pan as the, that's enough, yeah. If I re-roll that, that's going to be enough to do like a little tiny strawberry hand pie, and I know I have some prepped strawberries in the fridge, so I might just be doing that just as a little treat. Yeah, but so you're just essentially making a rolled edge. This is a delightful crust. It kind of puffs up and it's very flaky, even gluten-free. And I usually use the Bob's Red Mill pie crust. Flour blend is the one I did a whole bunch of tests with this recipe for the cookbook. I tried 4 different gluten-free flour blends that were for sale, and that was the one that they all worked fine, but that was the one that was really superior. So that's the one that I'm just going to use from now on for pie crust, because having tested it, I kind of know. Now, if you want, you can make this a little fancier. So what I do is I just use my thumb and first finger of the opposite hand and just make like a little pretty edge, because, you know, it's nice to do that, but not necessary. I am also pressing down, so I'm making sure it's really sticking to the pan, because I want it to stick to the pan. You can also just press a fork, or you can just do the roll edge, and that just looks really rustic. But this, you know, it takes another minute and a half, but it does look nice. And when they come out of the oven, then you kind of, it just looked like you cared a little bit more. You spent a little bit more time.
That's going to be the crisp. This
is the crisp, yeah, the crisp spot. And then the only thing I need to do, so my oven's preheated to 350. This will bake for about 30 minutes. You always want to cut just a couple of holes to let steam escape. And that's for 2 reasons. One is so it doesn't boil over, which we don't want. That's bad. And also, you don't want the crust to get soggy.
If it boils over, it's going to come out over the edge.
So if I didn't make holes, yeah, it would boil over the edge, and it makes a huge mess in your
oven. So when you see that, you know that's probably
you needed to maybe cut a couple more holes. And, you know, people will do pretty designs. You can also roll these out, the scraps out, cut them into shapes. I've seen people do that, but not necessary. All right, so this is going to go in the oven, and we'll come back in just a moment, but through the magic of video, and you'll see what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Okay? Okay, well, really, it was more like 45 minutes later, because 30 minutes, the edges were starting to brown, but the pastry, to my eye, did not look done. And this is something that will happen, so you want to set it for 5 minutes, check it, set it for 5 minutes. What I was looking for was the pastry to start turning golden. And you can also see that I didn't cut my slits deep enough, so they kind of sealed themselves back up. So I did get some bubbling around the edges. I forgot to mention that I normally cook these on a baking sheet. That helps if you're doing a pastry crust on the bottom, it helps the bottom get crisp, but it also means if it does boil over, it's not going in the bottom of your oven. And then I did use the extra scraps to make a little strawberry hand pie, so I wanted to show you that. All right, so let's take a look and see. Okay, so I'm getting nice, I'm hearing nice crispiness when I'm breaking through the crust. That's one of the things you're looking for. It's possible the crust could have used a couple more minutes, but I think it's okay. I do want to show you how nice and flaky it turns out. Okay, So what I really like about this recipe, so Claire Tansey's recipe or mine in my upcoming book, you get some really nice flakiness. It's almost kind of a cross between like a pie crust pastry and a puff pastry. It does sort of puff up. And then you could see all these nice, all these nice ingredients really melded together beautifully to create that pot pie. So this is going to be something we're going to enjoy today for our lunch. And I'm going to go ahead and have to blow on it quite a bit because it just came out of a 350 oven, so 45 minutes. You can use any kind of, so you could buy pre-made pie crust in the quarters. You can make your own. You can use gluten-free. Oh, that's delicious. I hope this inspires you to rethink your leftovers and really kind of do a little bit of planning when you're putting things in the freezer so that you can have yummy things to look forward to, which is important, especially nowadays. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow me, S. Weaver MPH, on social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm Stephanie Weaver MPH on Facebook. And I'd like to thank you for watching. Be well, wear your masks, keep your distance from people outside, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.